very helpful. Andrea, have you started the recording already?
I have.
Oh, I see it now. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Office of Special Education Services in our very first annual monthly data reporting managers. We thought it was very, very helpful to have a session where we talk directly with the data reporting managers, because they're the ones that's most intimate with the data and the processes in the district. And as our office shifts to a data driven decision, we also felt that we needed to empower the data reporting managers in the districts with what and how we were doing, so that if they got questions from the directors or whomever in their building about the data and the methodology in which we were using, we would have an opportunity to have conversations with the individuals in the district that would be knowledgeable enough to answer their questions. This meeting this morning, we invited all special education directors and anyone in the DEAM system with a role of data reporting managers. So if you have individuals in your building that you would like to have access to these trainings, please, by all means, forward the series to them. I do update the Dean's list monthly, the first Monday in each month. So as individuals are added in your district, they'll get access or invitation to future invitations. We do have a very, very healthy agenda for you today. What we're going to cover this morning, we will hit each of those indicators. We'll talk about how they connect and relate to other indicators or other tables within the office. We will talk about the changes in the reports, just so that you are mindful of those things. And definitely we want to get through all of this information to you today so that you can begin the work and have an exciting year. As always, we want to take this opportunity to remind you to do your very best to protect your students' information. Please do not include students' names in the comments or subject line of an email. Please do not include students' names in the comments, because these comments does get forwarded to other individuals. And so we want to ensure that we are protecting those students' confidentiality. Please do not send any unencrypted emails with personally identifiable information of students via email. Never use students' names, social security numbers, or other identifying information. Now, I know that some will say student IDs are a form of PII, but just having a student's ID number without knowing the districts that it's connected to, is a little harder to identify those who that student is. And so if you are sending an email, please use the student ID number. That's definitely the means in which our office will use to communicate with you. We do not have access to your information the way that you do, so we will have to take a couple of extra steps in order to identify or talk about specifically which student, the student in question. I do want to take a little opportunity here to talk about enriched issues that are happening. We are still having major issues with indicator 12. We do not know how long it will be before those issues are resolved or what those issues are. So we ask for your patience and understanding as we continue to work with Enrich to resolve those issues. I was told, and we do have a meeting with them at 2 o'clock this afternoon, so hopefully they're able to give us some really good information. From what I understand, we should have an update. You should be able to access the New Year's students' information in Enrich for the Enrich reporting on Monday. We hope that's still the case, but if not, I will definitely send you something to let you know. Okay, so we're going to get started, and The title that you see on the screen is a little different. You guys are familiar with tables 1 and 3, which is your child count. I thought I'd add indicators 5 and 6 to this report as well, because it is the information that comes from tables 1 and 3, which is your child count and least restrictive environment, that also correlates to indicators 5 and 6 for the LRE on your determinations. Okay, so indicator 5 is the percent of children with IEPs ages 5 and kinder who are enrolled in regular school programs, and I do see an error on there that I need to change that 6 to 5K, who are served inside a regular classroom 80% or more of the day, B, in a regular class at least 40% of the day, and C, in a separate school or residential facility. And then we also have indicator 6, who targets students who are ages 3 and 4 and 5 years old, not pre-K. And we also have a new reporting component to indicator 6, which will target those students who are served in the home setting. All students must be entered into Enrich, which means that when you're working on your child count, and your child count date is October 26th. I know that there are some of you who have historically tried to submit by October 26th. October 26th is not the submission date. It is the child count date, which means that all of your students should be enrolled and entered into the system by that date. This report does include students ages 3 through 21, and October 26th is a snapshot date of the students enrolled and receiving services on that date. Your report, however, the submission is due the first Friday in November, which is November 5th. I wanted to take this opportunity also to update, I'm just going to move this over here. With the LRE codes, what you're seeing on the screen now is your school age LRE, and we have made some modifications to the state code. We realized during the last reporting year that some of the state codes were duplicated in both groups. So we have realigned and reassigned some of those codes, and you'll see for the school age, we reassigned the separate school, which now has a new state code of 13. And we're working with Level Data and Enrich to make sure that those codes are correct in both systems. On the screen now, you'll see our early childhood LRE codes, and you'll see that what we did was we mainstreamed the separate class for separate class and separate school, retained the 4 and 5 values. We reassigned the residential facility value to 14 for early childhood. And once again, we want to make sure that these codes align and are in sync in Enrich. This is supposed to be a part of the updates that they're working on right now. And I have a meeting scheduled with Level Data on Monday to make sure that these codes are actually aligned and working properly. Okay. We do have a new reporting requirement, which is parentally placed private school children. And the purpose of this report is to assist districts in completing the proportionate share calculations for their annual LEA IDA grant. All districts will submit. This submission will happen via Enrich, and we aligned it with your child count. Because this is the first year that this report is available to the districts, you will not have any data to report until November of 2022. That will be the first time that your districts submit this report. We may, at the end of the school year, ask districts to submit this report just as a dry run to make sure that the report is giving us the information that we need. Okay. Parentally, and this is your PPPSC, are students who are only eligible under IDEA if he or she has been evaluated and determined to have a disability by an IEP team. They may include children who have been evaluated under general child find requirements, children with disabilities who are in public schools and transferred to a private or began homeschooling, children in a private school setting who are identified through child find. Without documentation of this determination, the LEA cannot count the student as an eligible private school student. The PPPSC is a cumulative report, so it will include data from previous years. Once again, this is our first year, so this is our baseline year, the start of this report. So 2021-22 school year is our baseline for this report. Identification after that will be captured on the next year report. So similar to child count, once you submit the report, any student that enters after or is deemed eligible after that will be on the following year's report. Students found to be eligible are continued. They will continue to be counted until one of the following criteria happen. The student ages out, the parent refuses evaluation or reevaluation, the student is reevaluated and is determined no longer qualify for equitable services, or the students graduate with a diploma. So in years past, if you had students that decided that they were, they didn't want to capitalize on the services, you just kind of let them go. Well, this report says that you still have to stay in touch with these students until one of these 4 criteria has happened. Okay. And if you have any questions at all about the PPPSC report, our finance team will be assisting you with any questions that you have for this report. The data team will collect the information. Your submission will come to us, and we will combine the data from the PPPSC report with your child count report and forward it to our finance team. And those contacts are Marlene Metz, Sarah Garrett, and Michelle Williams-Young. Okay. And OSIS data team, please feel free to interrupt me if there are questions or if anything's pressing that needs to be said. Our next report you will see is Table 4 exiting, which aligns with indicators 1 and 2, which is our graduation and dropout rate. Okay. Table 4 collects our exiting data, which also aligns with indicators 1 and 2, as I previously said. And the Table 4 report provides the report of children exiting special education services. All districts report, and this is an enriched submission, and it's due the 4th Friday in July. Now, I do want to take an opportunity to talk with you about the shift. Previously, we would use the data from our student information system in our Office of Research and Data Analysis for the graduation and dropout report, which was also the data that was reflected on your annual determinations and your profiles. Because of the way that the Office of Special Education, the OSEP, which is the Office of Federal Special Education Programs, is conducting the state's determination, we thought it would be good to align the two together, which means that when OSEP does this state's annual determination, they use the data from our Table 4 report. So we want to make sure that all of our efforts align with what we are doing. So we are changing the source of the data for the dropout and the graduation rate. And I just want you guys to know that that data will come from your Table 4 report. The graduation rate looks at the percent of youth who are exiting high school with a high school diploma, and Indicator 2 looks at the percent of youth dropping out of high school. I did include the regulation code, so you know if you ever want to reference why we are doing what we're doing, that is the regulation code that states that.
Carolyn, I think we have
Your
a few
exit report
questions.
looks at students ages 14 or older as of the last child count date, not at the time of exit. So please, 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 although you may see some ages and wonder why, it is the age as of the child count, not the age at the time of the exit. And it will include any student that exited anytime between July 1st and June 30th. Okay. Do not exit active students eligible to return. Do not include students who exited the previous year and then returned. Parentally placed private school students should not be included into this count. And I know that Enrich is designed right now to just kind of give you every student. We will work with you to ensure that the correct students are actually counted on the report. If you have a student that was not enrolled in your district at the end of the previous year, and then they enroll in your district during the new year and they leave, they should not be included on this report. And I know that particular situation, that scenario as it stands right now, those students will appear in your report. So you will need to let us know which students should not appear on your report. And once again, we will work with you to make sure that the correct students are actually reported on your Table 4 exiting report. And it is an unduplicated count of students. And once again, we do know that sometimes we do have transient students in your district. So if those students, it is the status at the end of the previous year, if they exited during the year and did not return, those are the students that should be on your exited report. Okay. There's only a couple of valid exit reasons that you should see when you're exiting a student from Enrich. And I know that list, this may not be what you see, but this is what you should see. And as we get deeper into the year and we have the individual report monthly meeting, we can talk more in depth about these codes and what's appearing. We will also take recommendations from you guys as to means or opportunities to make the system better. But as it stands, you should see transfer to a regular education, graduated with a high school diploma, received a certificate, a high school credential. This will also include GED recipients. In years past, GED students were still counted as a dropout. That is no longer the case. They don't get credit for a diploma, but you can count them as receiving a certificate. And we just confirmed that last week, a couple of weeks ago, in one of our meetings with the IDC. Reach maximum age, died, move known to be continuing, and drop out. If you notice the exit reasons that are highlighted in red, those are categories that are used in the denominator for your dropout and your graduation rates. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to discipline, which coincides with your indicators 4A and 4B. The purpose of this report is to report children with disabilities subject to any disciplinary removal. All districts submit this report, and it is an Excel spreadsheet at the time. Currently, we are working on some things. I don't want to talk about it right now because I don't want to jinx the process. And that spreadsheet is emailed to Special Education Services at ed.sc.gov, and it is due the first Friday in July. We are giving you guys this information early on because we do want to get to a point where we're not having to grant extensions unless it's a systems issue, okay? So I want to be very clear about the extensions because timelines have changed in our offices, and so we don't want a trickle-down effect, okay? Table 5 is a beast report. I will definitely give you that. But what I would encourage you to do is look at it in the following way. It is 6 separate reports by disability, race, ethnicity, gender, and multilingual, which was formerly known as your ESOL or your LEP students. If you look at each report separately, it will be easier for you to complete each of the 6 discipline categories. How students should be reported. I thought it would be very helpful to highlight these things in this report. When talking about 5A, which is the only instance in this report that references the number of incidents and not the number of children. So every tab that you will complete in the Table 5 report looks at the total count of children, not the incident, except 5A when you're looking at the total disciplinary removals. Any student that have an infraction less than a half a day are excluded from this report. You do not count them in your total days. Any students with at least a half day suspension of OSS or ISS gets rounded up to 1 day. Any 0.5 get rounded to the next whole number. And so students with 1.5 to 10 days will be counted in the total 2 through 10 days, which is your 5C, and greater than 10 days, it goes into the category of 5D. So it doesn't matter how many days over the 10-day, once you reach that over 10 day, it is over 10 days. In-school and out-of-school suspension. And in-school suspensions are instances in which the child is temporarily removed from his or her classroom for disciplinary purposes, but remain under direct supervision of school personnel. Okay, direct supervision means school personnel are physically in the same location as the student under supervision. Out of school suspension are instances in which the child is temporarily removed from his or her from the regular school setting for disciplinary reasons and to another setting. These kids bottom out of seat, not in class, or out of school suspensions, not in your building. These includes both removals in which the IEP team has, in which no IEP services are provided because the removal is 10 days or less. I do want to caution you there, because when for the individuals, whether it be you or another person entering the information into PowerSchool, there is a component that asks the question whether or not the student with disability, if the student with disability is receiving services while they're out of school. And this would apply to those students that have been expelled. You do need to notate in PowerSchool whether or not they're receiving services while they're expelled or suspended. Table 5, the expulsion tab, is the only tab that references Gen Ed students. So it does ask you for the number of students, Gen Ed and students with disabilities, that was expelled at any point during the school year. And once again, I did want to notate that students that are parentally placed in private schools are excluded from this report. Indicators, the information from Table 5 is what is used to populate indicators 4A and 4B, and that's to fulfill the federal equity requirements to evaluate the extent of students with disability in racial ethnic groups of disproportionality. So 4A, 4B is looking at whether or not there's disproportionality in long-term suspensions. And this is looking at students that receive more than 10 days out of school suspension. Okay, all districts, well, it's not a submission per se. This analysis happens within the Office of Special Education Services, and identified districts will have to submit a self-assessment to the Special Education Services. This notification will happen the second Friday in May. However, we are and we will be notifying districts. We're behind the curve for last school year, so districts will be receiving that hopefully by close of business tomorrow. Those identified districts for indicators 4A, 4B will get that notification by close of business tomorrow. And it's looking, once again, it's looking at the rates of suspensions and expulsion in students with disabilities for greater than 10 days for a school year. There is no subgroup for 4A, but 4B does look at race, the 7 race categories. And so once again, this is the same information, just in a different format. So you'll see there is no subgroup for 4A, so no districts are excluded from that methodology or calculation. 4B, you have to have at least 10 students in your district that had out-of-school suspensions greater than 10 days in order to be included in this calculation. And you also must have a rate ratio of at least greater than 2.5. And then what that does is it triggers a file review for the self-assessment file review. And then you will send that information back to us. And we will, basically what we're trying to do is determine whether or not the district have policies, practices, and procedures that cause them to inappropriately identify their students of significant discrepancy in rates of suspension. I know it's a mouthful, and once again, I do want to remind you that we are going to have smaller breakout sessions covering and detailing this information. Okay, so this is just the same thing, basically telling you that the rate ratio compares one LEA to all LEAs in the state. 4B is looking at the same thing, but among the 7 race ethnicity categories. Okay, and if your district has a rate ratio of 2.5 or greater, it will trigger the districts to complete the self-assessment to determine if inappropriate policies and practices led to the significant discrepancy. Our next indicator is the COSEF, which is the Child Summary Outcomes. All districts submits, and it is submitted by Enrich, and it is due the 4th Friday in June, which is June 24th. And it looks at the percent of preschool children aged 3 through 5 with IEPs who demonstrate or improved a positive social emotional skills, including social relationship, acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, and use of appropriate behavior to meet their needs. Okay. To be counted in Indicator 7, students must have been served at least 180 days. There's no way for districts to tell if a student receives services in another district. And even in the instances where students are transferring into your district, they should transfer in, if they meet the criteria, they should transfer in with a COSEF. If they do not, it is the district's responsibility to complete that COSEF on that child. All students must have a service entry date and an exit date, and it should fall between July 1st and June 30th of the current reporting years, okay? We did change this a little bit, not a little bit. This year is the first year where you will complete the COSEF for kids when they're entering kinder, and if they turn if they turn 6 after school starts, then you do the exit at age 6. And I believe I'm saying that correctly, Andrea. If not, if you would just chime in and provide some clarification to that.
Yes, so I'm sorry, I was looking at the chat, so I kind of missed what you said because I was looking at the question. But yes.
Once again, this is just saying that transfer students, due diligence, make sure you have have a completed COSEF on those students. We at the state level, once we get that information, because we'll have all students combined in one report, we will look to see if that student had services in another district and combine them together to get a complete entry and exit COSEF on the students. Students that have less than 180 days of services will be removed from the report. Parent involvement survey, basically this is This is also one of our federal reporting requirements. It's the percent of parents with children receiving special education services who report that schools facilitated parent involvement as a means of improving the services for children. Now, this is a reporting change because the survey actually opened July 1st. There is a new field in there. We are no longer doing the survey sampling, which means that all districts will submit the survey. And you see that the due date is May 1st. The first Friday in May, which means that all districts will need to submit their indicator 8 on May 6th. We will take that and do some analysis to see which families have not completed the survey, and we will send a postcard reminder to those families. We have created a flyer for districts to share with your families so that you can remind them to complete the surveys. This survey is triggered at the conclusion of initial disabilities. This indicator will tie in with you. If those of you who have been with us for a while, this would be what you would normally see on the calendar as indicators 4, 9, and 10, where our office actually completes the analysis, and then we tell you if you are in identified districts, and then you complete the self-assessment and return that information to you. We are working in some next steps so that once you send it back to us, because that's actually what determines if there's a negative ding on our annual SPP APR report. And so we're working on follow-up and next steps. Okay. Once again, only the identified districts will have to complete the self-assessment, and for this current school year, you'll be notified May 5th. And for last school year, we hope to have the information of those identified districts out to you by close of business on tomorrow. Okay. And once again, it's looking at, it is the same information, just written out in a different way, looking at disproportionate representation in identification, and indicator 10 is looking at disproportionate representation across the 6 specific disability categories, and that is autism, emotional disability, intellectual disability, specific learning disability, other health impairment, and speech language. And once again, the trigger is having a risk ratio of greater than 2.5 or an alternate risk ratio of greater than 2.5. And Kelvin, if you want to chime in right quick and talk to them a little bit about the alternate risk ratio and the comparison group for that when they're compared to the state.
Yes. So with indicators 9 and 10, when your district doesn't have a large sample size or meet our sample size requirements for
Can
a
you guys hear me?
Helen, I don't think you can hear us. I don't think you can hear us. We hear you, but let me tell.
Sorry. So our, much like significant disproportionality, indicators 9 and 10.
Okay, well, we will definitely provide more information to you about that.
Okay.
Just gonna pause right quick. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I just had to check in. I couldn't hear anything, so I wanted to make sure that you guys could still hear me. You guys can hear me, but I can't hear you guys. So we're going to open it back up for clarification. We're pretty much on the downside of the presentation, and I do want to have an opportunity to give you guys a chance to at least ask some questions. Indicators 11 and 12, that is our 60-day timeline. And that is the percent of children evaluated to receive special education services 60 days from the date the parent signs consent. And so you're looking at the date the parent signs consent to the date the evaluation is completed, not the date of the meeting, but the date the evaluation is completed. And indicator 12 is looking at the percent of children referred by Part C prior to age 3 who are found eligible under Part B and who have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthdays. Okay. Once again, this is just another definition, just written out in a different way. All districts submit this, and it's submitted by Enrich. And I do know that there are a couple of districts who are still having some issues with indicator 11 through Enrich. But we will work with you to make sure that those issues are resolved and your percentages are reflected correctly. And this due the 4th Friday in July. Okay. Once again, this is just the formula, just a quick timeline of the formula. Indicator 12, once again, all districts submit, and these are students who are found eligible under Part B who have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthday. Okay. Wanted to talk about the overdue comments for 11 and 12 and the importance of you guys documenting that really, really thorough. Once again, I want to remind you, do not add students' names in the comments and the valid reasons. Oh, wait a minute. I have the wrong valid reasons there, but I'm going to make sure I get that corrected before I send it out to the districts. The valid reasons for indicators 11 and 12, previously we would be very, very lenient with some of the things. Director Davis right now, holidays, fall, winter, summer breaks, waiting on outside evaluation, weekends, COVID theoretically is not a valid reason. However, if you notate that COVID impacted your outcomes for indicators 11 and 12, we will give you credit, but we need to know that because the district will not take a hit, but the state will take a hit for that, okay? So please, please, please be very, very thorough. If students are transferring in and you're are approaching that 60-day timeline, please make sure that you are reaching out and have documentation to find out, do the prior written notice to make sure that the parents are granting permission to extend past the timeline, but you need to be able to notate those things in your comments. Like I said, Director Davis is very, very strict about meeting the timelines and districts planning accordingly. We want to do our best to make sure that that districts aren't being penalized on the overdue reasons if it is not their fault. Okay. Indicator 14, the post-secondary outcome, which is, I know it is what are this basically provides the students to find out what they're doing 1 year after they leave high school. It is lag data, so this will be this year, it will be the students that exited in June of 21. This is an all district report and is submitted via Enrich and is due the 3rd Friday in February. And it's looking at students who are no longer in secondary school and had IEPs at the time they left. And they're looking at the former students these situations, if a student were to fall into all three of these categories, we would count them in A, but they have the key is they have to have completed at least one term, or 90 to be considered competitively employed. They have to have worked at least 90 days. Okay. We do have some districts that do the opt-in, which means that the students on their list, the districts themselves contact the families as a means of increasing their response rate to allow them an opportunity to talk about and highlight success stories that's happening in their districts. And once again, these students that are included on this report are students that graduated with a high school diploma, received a certificate, reached maximum age, and even those who dropped out and did not return. Your deceased students are not included on this report. Table 2 personnel report. It is the percent of personnel employed or contracted who provide services and special education and related services to students with disability. All districts submit, and it is an Excel spreadsheet, and it is due the 4th Friday in January. This is not an enriched report. This report is reflective as of the child count date, so it is the personnel that you have employed providing services to students as of the child count date. Okay. Section A is looking at your full-time equivalency of special education teachers who are certified and not certified. That used to say highly qualified and not highly qualified, but it's just back to just whether or not they're certified or not certified. And we still have the category for ages 3 through 5 and then 5K through 21. And that the age criteria component, it is the same for all categories. So if you have a teacher that serves students in both populations, you want to be sure that you count them in the group in which the majority of their kids are. So if you have a teacher that or parapro that works with students that are ages 3 to 5 and 5K through 21, the school age population, and the majority of their kids are in the school age section, that's where you're going to count that staff or employee. Okay. Section C is looking at your related services provider, and Section D is your speech language. Because speech language in the state of South Carolina can be a primary and a related services, we pulled it out and asked that the districts report separately on that. And then before we submit on the first Wednesday in November to the feds, we actually added back in to meet the criteria for Section A, B, and C actually. Table 2 is a count of full-time equivalency, not people. Numbers reflected on Table 2 must be personnel serving children with disabilities as of the student count date, which is the 4th Tuesday in October, and it's paid employees only. No volunteers should be included in this count. And once again, speech language is reported on a separate worksheet. Okay, decimals may be used, and you want to round the decimal to the 100th place. Part-time teachers working 4 hours per day. I did add a little blurb in there about that. And a 6-hour day as a full-time equivalency will be reported as 0.67. Okay, and if you have a teacher who works with both gen ed and students with disability, you want to report the FTE based on the percentage of time that the teacher works with students with disability, not the time in which this teacher is working with the gen ed students. Okay. The ESY report, it's an all districts report, and we did change how you report that this year. Instead of doing the Excel spreadsheet, we only ask that you submit your totals with on the certification that is signed by your superintendent or the designee, and that certification is emailed to the Special Education Services inbox, and it's due the second Friday in June. This is a non-extension report, so the due date is the due date. Okay, ESY considerations. So this report is should help districts offset some of the expenses that's incurred to provide ESY services to the districts. And in order to receive or count the students for ESY, they must meet the following criteria. Students must have been evaluated and determined eligible. Students must have an IEP that includes ESY services and turning 3 years old during the summer. So your 2.5-year-olds that are going into are also included into this report. Funds are distributed to districts late June, early July, and must be expended by September 30th. Significant disproportionality. This is a beast. Some districts have been notified about significant disproportionality. Our timeline is a little off, so we do apologize for you receiving your notifications later or late, but it is a federal requirement, and your significant disproportionality information is reported back to the feds as a part of your Table 8 report. So although the analysis has a slightly different funky look, it is reported back as a part of the Table 8, the MOE. You would know it as MOE and CEIS, but for data reporting, we only concentrate on the CEIS component of it, and finance concentrates on the MOE, your maintenance of efforts. All districts support, all districts submit, and it is an Excel spreadsheet that's due the second Friday in October. So we'll have some more information about that coming up. This is one of our federal reporting requirements, and to be identified as it's actually CCEIS, which is when the districts are required to set aside 15% of their funds to use for students for intervention services for students. And we're definitely going to have some more information about that coming out to you, because we want to get ahead of the feds. Right now, they're not asking us to tell or report the students that's serving, but I can tell you that it's coming down the pike. So we want to make sure that we have policies, we have procedures in place to help districts guide them through this particular process. Okay. Once again, CEIS is voluntary. When you're setting aside 15% of your funds on a volunteer basis as a means of helping or working with providing services to students, preventive work. It's a word, I can't remember what it is right now, but I'll get it to you. And if you are significant disproportion, if you have significant disproportionality, you are required to set aside 15%. And so that's the difference between the voluntary, the CEIS, and the CCEIS. One is voluntary, the other is required, okay? Generally, a risk ratio greater than 3.0 for disciplinary actions and greater than a 4.0 for identification and placement is the trigger for the required or significant disproportionality. Okay, if you are identified as significant disproportionality, you will get a courtesy call before the final letter comes out to prepare you. Notifications for significant disproportionality happens in August. These are the categories. It is a beast of a report. So we look at identification with those 6 categories, discipline categories, similar to what you do for indicators 9 and 10, but very different. And then there's a component that where we look at the placement, the LRA code of the children, and then C is the discipline, where it looks at incidents, in school, out of school, and total disciplinary removals for in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions. Okay, I did want to give you a little blurb or visual of the methodology, how we use the data, which years of data is used. So starting last school year, we actually had to include, for placement categories, we will include the 5-year-olds that are in kinder. So their 5K students are now included in these analyses, whereas before they were excluded from the analysis because the 5-year-olds were still a part of our early childhood population. Okay. Announcements. So I did want to tell you that we will be having these meetings monthly on the third Thursdays at 10 o'clock. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 16th, and where we will be looking at tables 8 and child count. I did want to make a part of this presentation as well that we will have quarterly pre-checks for indicators 7, 11, and 12, and that's November 19th, February 18th, and April 15th. I did put this screenshot in there. We'll talk about it in details in one of our later meetings, but I did want to give you an idea of some of the changes that's coming down the pikes as it pertains to the LEA determination and the methodology. The data piece of it, and I'm only including areas that's relevant to the data side. Okay, so for the compliance, where we have data reporting, where we'll be looking at valid and reliable data and whether it's on time. Excuse me. For the compliance factors, which are I left one off, which is indicators 4B, 9, 10. I left 2 off actually. Indicators 4B, 9, 10, 11, and 13 are our compliance factors. Nope. Please disregard that. When looking at the compliance factors for the LEA determinations, we will only look at indicators 9, 11, 12, and 13 for this particular component of it. And I just wanted you to put your eyes on it. I did want to also put the correlation for the performance factors. So for your early childhood LRE, which is going to be indicator 6B, which comes from the child count, your COAS, looking at the indicator 7, the summary statement 1 for A, B, and C is what we'll use to measure that. Your academics LRE, which is 5B from the child count. Your OSS information is going to come from your table 5 report. Your social emotional equity for PF7, we'll be looking at indicators 4, 9, 10, and significant disproportionality. And the PSO graduation rate is going to come, indicator 1 is going to come from your table 4 exiting report. And then 9 is looking at your transition students, and that's going to be indicators 13 and 14. So I did want to at least let you put your eyes on it. We will be having more detailed sessions to cover this information. So don't be alarmed or feel any kind of way about the information that we have shared with you today. And I did want to share a screen along with the relevant reports and who the contacts are for those reports. And once again, this information will be posted on the website. We are recording it. We will have a Q&A for you with all questions and answers. We want to turn it into a working manual for you guys to have. We're also working on a quick down and dirty Q&A for each of the indicators and connectors so that you can see how it aligns to other things or other areas within the office and other reports that you are collecting. Once again, don't forget, if you have any questions, to please use the link that Andrea put in the chat at the start of the meeting to submit your questions. It doesn't matter how irrelevant you might think the question is. Please ask, because if you thought it, then 9 times out of 10, someone else thought it too. And so we do want to make sure that we are providing relevant and meaningful information back to to you guys so that you're able to have a healthy and productive year with your data. I'm going to stop sharing the presentation right now, but I did want to see Andrea or the team. I don't know if you guys are able to talk just yet or say anything. Andrea, are you able to speak now?
Yes, yes.
No,
So,
I see you're highlighted, but it's not coming through. Technical difficulties, it never works the way we want it to when we want it to work. But once again, we do want to be respectful of your time. So we'll leave the link open so that you can type your questions. Oh, you guys can hear her. I just can't hear her. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet.
okay.
I just don't know if it's coming through on the recording. So that's concerning to me.
I don't know if I can let her know that I'm talking, but again, if you go to, I don't know if you all can see my screen.
So anyway, because maybe, can you say something now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Kelvin.
So, Kelvin, I was just going to say that, yes, we had some quick questions that you may be able to address very quickly on some of the ones that we received.
Sure.
About posting the PowerPoint, or I told them that we would be emailing that out. Is that correct? Just want to make sure.
That is correct. We will share the link and the PowerPoint. We'll post it on the website. We'll make sure that you have access to all of this information via the website. We'll send the PowerPoint to you in the email as well.
And they also want to know about the new data collection calendar for the 21-22 school year.
There is a new data reporting calendar. I did not want to share it with this group before the directors have had an opportunity to receive it first. So once our office sends it out to the directors, then I will follow up and send it to the data reporting managers, the enriched contacts, and the secondary contacts as we normally do. But I did not want to share it with this group before the directors have seen it. I know that some directors are on this call, but not all, and as a form of courtesy, I would like for them to at least have it first.
And Carolyn, I don't know what happened. I know that you posted the PowerPoint in the chat, but for some reason, the districts aren't able to access that. And so I see a question now saying, is it possible to receive the PowerPoint prior to the meetings? That was the intent, but it did not, for some reason, It's not shown in the chat.
Yeah, I think it did not share because we are using Microsoft Teams, and so you'd have to be a part of our agency in order for it to come up on your side. So even though I added it in the chat or as a file to share, it's not coming through, but in the future, you will have the PowerPoint prior to the start of the meeting. And also what we want to do is set up a link so that if you have questions about it, you can submit your questions early on, and we'll be sure to include those, make sure that the answer is covered in the presentation.
Okay. The others are very specific. I think I have a contact information for the rest of the questions. There is one that says, where's the LRE state code input in PowerSchool? I didn't have that person's contact information, so if you don't mind putting that in the Mentimeter, we'll be sure to get that question answered for you.
Okay. Well, that concludes our session this morning, and we thank you guys for taking time out of your day to share with us. And we do want to be respectful of your time and let you know that we are here for you. We want to do our best to make sure that your data is accurate and valid, because we know the intent, the outcome or the impacted outcome that it could have on your LEA determinations and your SOTA, your system of tiered support. So as we work with the data reporting managers, you'll be able to help your directors answer some of the questions they may have about the data, how it's calculated. Okay, thank you. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.